Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a review on the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette. Now if you've seen my favourites video, you're already going to know that I do really love this palette, but I do just want to go a bit more in depth about it and also compare it to the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, the original palette. I don't have the semi-sweet palette. I do plan on getting that, and when I do, of course I will do a review and compare it to both the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons and the original palette as well. But I don't have that to compare any of the swatches to. So let's just start off with price and packaging. The price of this is £39 and it's available at debenhams.com and Debenhams shops as well. The packaging is very similar to that of the original Too Faced packaging. It just comes in like a little cardboard chocolate wrapper type thing. It's so cute. This is the original packaging for the Too Faced chocolate bar. So it's like a baby pink colour, and then you've got the Too Faced chocolate bonbons. So I'll give you a close up. So it's got Too Faced chocolate bonbons on the front, it's got some cute little love hearts here, and then on the back it's got all the shades that are included and some information off to the side including ingredients as well. So I'm just going to read the little blurb on the back as I always do. So basically it says, discover candy-coated confection of heart-shaped shadows infused with antioxidant-rich cocoa powder. It includes 16 matte and shimmer shades in delicious pops of colour, sugary brights and beautiful go-to neutrals, and best-selling one-swipe formula you know. So just like with all of the other chocolate bar palettes, this does come with a glamour guide, although I'm not necessarily sure where I've placed mine. I seem to have misplaced it. So basically it's just a little guide and it has a little face chart and it just gives you guidelines on how you can use this palette if you're unsure. And that's something Too Faced tends to include with most of their palettes. So basically the outside packaging is super adorable. I can never throw these away. I tend to keep them out on display in my room. So I'm sure you're all aware of what the palette looks like by now, but for those of you who may not have seen it or unsure, this is what it looks like. So it's just a really nice candy floss pink colour. You've got this hot pink love heart and it says chocolate bonbons in it. And it's also like everything in it is raised as well, which is a really nice touch if you can see that. The palette itself has a magnetic closure, which is great if you're thinking of travelling as well, and it's a nice slim size. The original chocolate bar palette, which I think is also available in this size now, but when it first came out it was more like a pencil tin size almost. It reminds me of a pencil tin I had when I was a kid, but it is slightly bulkier if you can see the difference there. So I feel like this is a slimmer, more travel friendly size. So once you open the palette up, it does come with a mirror. Although it's kind of hinged, it's a little bit floppy for me, and I would have to rest this up on something if I wanted to use it, because I prefer my mirror to be like that rather than that. That's too low for me. But it is nice that it comes with a mirror, and it's quite a good size mirror as well. And then we have our 16 eyeshadows here, and it is a mix of mattes and I'd say a couple of satins in there as well. It doesn't mention anything about satins, but some of them do come off more as a satin than a matte. And then also, obviously it's got some really nice shimmery shades in there as well. So one of the things I feel like with this palette, and not only this palette but with a lot of Too Faced packaging, is it's definitely one of those things where people either really love it or they really don't like it at all. Obviously if you're not into pink and hearts and cutesy packaging, then this is not going to be your thing. You're probably going to find it kind of a bit almost childlike, especially when it comes to the shadows themselves, as they are shaped in little love hearts. And some people have said that they remind them quite a lot of the palettes that you can get for children, which also come in love heart shapes as well. I personally like the little love hearts. Again, like I say, it is personal preference, and some people are going to really go for it and some people aren't going to be so keen on the packaging either. Now also with these love hearts, it almost looks like you wouldn't get as much eyeshadow as you would in the original chocolate bar palette, which are just in their normal kind of eyeshadow form. So with these two larger highlight shades here in the palette, you do get less product with these in this palette. So in the original chocolate bar, they are 2.8 grams, which is 0.10 ounces. And in here, they're 2.2 grams, which is 0.07 ounces. So you do get slightly less product, but to be honest, they're still a really good size and it's going to take you a while to get through those. Here is the chocolate bonbons palette against the original chocolate bar. As you can see, the original chocolate bar is very much based around a lot of these like red, maroony, burgundy shades, whereas the chocolate bonbon tend to have a lot more pops of colour and it's a lot more cool toned as well. If you already own the chocolate bar palette and you're wondering whether you really need the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette. I will say they do have a lot of different shades, and later on I'm going to swatch shades that I thought at first glance might look similar, and then I'll tell you about the similarities and differences of them as well. Firstly, I'm just going to get into the swatches for this palette. Okay, so let's start off with Almond Truffle, Cashew Chew, and Dark Truffle. Okay, please excuse the crazy swatches, these eyeshadows are super pigmented. First of all, we have Almond Truffle. And Almond Truffle is a really beautiful taupe shade, quite a lot of pink in it. And I'm wearing this as a transition shade in my crease today. Then we have Cashew Chew, which is a really awesome lighter transition shade, especially for people with lighter and fairer skin tones. Cashew Chew is like a peach beige satin shade. I think it's supposed to be a matte, but it's definitely more of a satin. And then we've got Dark Truffle, which is just this beautiful dark chocolate colour with a kind of bronzy gold shimmer running through it. It's really, really nice and very, very pigmented. Then just going to swatch Cotton Candy, Pecan Praline. I love the names of these shadows. And Cafe au Lait. So here we have Cotton Candy, and Cotton Candy is just a really beautiful candy floss blue toned pink. And it's pretty much the same shade as the palette itself. Then we have Pecan Praline, which is another great transitioning shade. Pecan Praline is matte, by the way. And then this beautiful shimmery shade here is called Cafe au Lait. So we have Totally Fetch, Sprinkles, and Bordeaux. So firstly, we have Totally Fetch, which I believe has been in other Too Faced palettes. I do own this in the Everything Nice palette. Not from last Christmas, but the Christmas before. I find that the Totally Fetch in the Everything Nice palette is a little bit more pigmented than this. I don't know if it's a difference in formula because they've added the cocoa, but I feel like this can come off, you can probably see in the swatch there, it can come off quite patchy, and I don't feel like it's as pigmented. And I will swatch those for you together in a moment so you can see what I mean. Then have Sprinkles, which is this really beautiful light pinky gold shimmery colour. And then after that we have Bordeaux, which is this really nice rich brown burgundy matte shade. Okay, I'm then going to swatch Earl Grey, Molasses Chip, and Mocha. So firstly we have Earl Grey, and Earl Grey is a really interesting shade to me because it almost comes off like a gunmetal blue grey, but it definitely has a teal in there as well. And this also has a slight shimmer to it. And we have Molasses Chip, which is what I'm wearing on the centre of my eyes today, and this is just beautiful. But it's just an in-your-face metallic copper, it's just stunning. Then after Molasses Chip we have Mocha, which is like a medium warm brown matte shade. Okay, moving on to the last two of the smaller eyeshadows, we're going to swatch Malted and Blackcurrant. And I'm actually wearing both of these shades on my lid in the inner and outer corner, and I just feel like it makes it more of an intense, almost like a bruised plummy colour. So now I'm just going to swatch Satin Sheets and Divinity. So this one here is Satin Sheets, and this is just a really beautiful peachy gold highlight shade. I'm wearing this one on my inner corner today, and I love using this as an inner corner highlight. And then you've got Divinity, which is like a pinky beige matte shade. Now this one is very, very powdery. You can probably see that I've got quite a bit of it on my top. But this is an extremely powdery matte shade, but it's a great highlight, and I'm wearing that on my brow bone. So overall, I do feel like this is such a beautiful palette. I didn't think I would love this as much as my original chocolate bar palette, but I actually love it more, and I especially love the fact that they've included the pops of colour. I mean, in the original you have a couple of pops of colour, but if I'm honest with you, I felt like the pigmentation let those down a bit, the purple and pink shades. I just didn't think the pigmentation was that great with those. But I feel like in this palette, apart from maybe Totally Fetch, which I feel is a little bit patchy, like these are so beautifully pigmented and they blend like a dream, just as the shadows in the original chocolate bar palette. The smell in this palette isn't as strong. I personally like the smell of the cocoa shadows. I know it can be off-putting for some people. I feel like the original chocolate bar palette smell, like the cocoa smell, is much stronger, whereas you have to get in quite close to smell this. And then once these are applied, you cannot smell that cocoa smell on your face, if that's something else that you're worried about as well. But I do feel like the cocoa smell is definitely a lot lighter in this palette. Something else that gives it bonus points over the original chocolate bar palette is the fact that the names are printed on this palette itself rather than on this sheet. This sheet's from the chocolate bar palette, and we all know what I think of those sheets. They're just a nuisance to me, and I'm still surprised that I have this. I think I've tried really hard to hold on to it, so otherwise I'm just going to have no idea of what I'm working with. I do feel like with the pops of colour as well, it's quite a well-rounded palette. If you don't want to just go completely neutral and you do want to add a pop of pink or a pop of purple, but then you've got that there as an option. So the next thing I wanted to do is compare a couple of these shades in this palette for you with a few shades in the Chocolate Bar palette and also Totally Fetch. I'm just going to compare that shade with the one that you got in the Everything Nice palette. Now the Everything Nice palette was a limited edition palette from the holiday collection, so this is no longer available, but I do want to just swatch it for you so you can see what I mean, because I really feel like this is a lot more pigmented. So that's Totally Fetch from the Everything Nice palette versus Totally Fetch from the Chocolate Bonbon palette. See, I've used the top one from the Everything Nice palette a lot, and I just feel like the one in the Chocolate Bonbons palette just comes off a little bit more patchy, and you have to tend to build it up a bit more than the one from the Everything Nice palette. But really that is the only shade that I've had a little bit of trouble with, and to be honest it's not a major thing because you can build it up. It still has some good pigmentation, it's just not as pigmented as I maybe would like. So the next thing I want to do is compare a few of the shades from the original Chocolate Bar palette with the Chocolate Bonbon palette. So there are a few shades that I want to go through with you, and the first two are Dark Truffle, which is this one here, and then Black Forest Truffle from the original Chocolate Bar palette, which my finger is hiding. It's that one there. You might think that this is an odd comparison because Black Forest Truffle is obviously more red toned than Dark Truffle. Dark Truffle is definitely more of a chocolatey colour, but because of those shimmers that you get in Dark Truffle, they can come off a little bit similar. Black Forest Truffle is definitely more red toned. The next two shades that I wanted to compare were Strawberry Bonbon and Cotton Candy. So here's Strawberry Bonbon, which is a matte baby pink shade, and then Cotton Candy. Cotton Candy is definitely darker than Strawberry Bonbon, but I feel like Cotton Candy is almost like Strawberry Bonbon's more shimmery blue tone sister. Then I wanted to compare Bordeaux to Cherry Cordial. Okay, so here is Bordeaux and here is Cherry Cordial. As you can see, Bordeaux is definitely more on the brown side, and Cherry Cordial is more deeper burgundy shade, a bit more like my jumper. And then the final two shades that I wanted to compare were White Chocolate and Divinity. Okay, so I don't know if you'll be able to tell from here, but these are both very powdery shadows. So on the top here we have White Chocolate, and down here we have Divinity. Now there is a slight difference. I feel like White Chocolate is more on the creamy yellow side, whereas Divinity is on the peachy, not the pinky beige side. But to be honest, once you've applied those to the eyes, you can't really tell a difference. So I feel like these are the most similar of the bunch. But basically I'm pleased to say between these two palettes there are no exact dupes. There's maybe a couple of shades that might look a little bit similar at first glance, but they're just not really the same at all. Apart from those two highlight shades, which I feel like you couldn't really tell much of a difference once they're applied to the eye. So I do feel like this is different enough for you to be able to justify purchasing it if you do already own the Chocolate Bar palette. I mean, nobody needs all of these neutral shades, but I feel like if you're a collector, or even if you're somebody who's looking for something like a well-rounded palette that has pops of colour, as long as you're into pink as your pop of colour or purple, then you're going to be okay with this palette. And I also really love the addition of this Earl Grey shade here, which is that beautiful gunmetal teal shade. You can create so many different looks from this palette: daytime looks, evening looks, smoky looks, bronzy looks. You can go for really feminine pink shades. You can do so much with this palette. I will leave all of the looks that I've done so far down below for you guys if you're interested in seeing them. I did a Valentine's series with this palette, just so if you guys are interested in seeing what kind of looks I created with this palette, I'll leave those down below for you. But I feel like that's what's won me over with this palette even more so. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love this, but I will admit that I do love this palette more now that I've tried them both out side by side and I've compared them. And I just think this is such a great palette for travelling as well, because you're just going to get so many different versatile looks. You've got some great highlight shades included in there, some great transition shades as well, and I just think it's a beautiful, well-rounded palette. So anyway guys, that is basically what I think of the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette. Let me know if you guys have tried this out, or if you're interested in it, or you have any questions. Please feel free to let me know down in the comments section below. Please remember to be kind to each other. I hope you found this interesting in some way, and I'll see you in my next video.